Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Cornes. Kane, some unexpected results today. Let's start with one of the biggest. The big story, an undermanned Melbourne beats the Bombers.
What a great performance it was from Melbourne. They got some young players really emerging who have been so important for them. Windsor and Tholstrup and Turner and McVie across half-back. So they'll be thrilled with that and the influence that those players had. Rivers was enormous on ball, and without Gawn and Petrarca, that's one of the wins of the year. They've won 3 out of their last 4, and they're in a lot better shape than what they were a month ago.
Massive. They're 10-7 on the season now. And the way they did it, they got so many goals out the back across the course of the night. It was a wet night, but the way they were able to surge the ball forward proved the difference. Really.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Ridley's doing there, sitting off, just allowing them to give off under no pressure at all. Windsor, I mentioned, but his performance was excellent, his running power. Pickett was involved in a lot of this and really important. So in those tricky conditions, what Melbourne did, they rely on contest and defence. So their ability to win the contest and then almost take a risk centre forward, and we can see that there. Melksham, since he has come back into the side, has been really important for them. Experienced head, provides a great contest. Shocking turnover. Now, really impossible to defend that, but once again, you find a free Melbourne player in metres and metres of space, and Fritsch kicked 3. So their ability to win contest and then get out the back, but also score off turnover, really important with the way that they set up the game tonight.
It certainly was. As you mentioned, Max Gawn out with a chipped fibula. This is what they did without him. So Harry Petty and Jacob Van Rooyen took the majority of the ruck work. Essendon dominant in the ruck, as you can see with the hit-outs, but it didn't matter though because they killed them in clearance. They won contested ball and they beat them from stoppage.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Sometimes we do overrate the influence of a ruckman. Now, Max Gawn is more than just a ruckman because of the stuff he does around the grounds. But if you had have said you win hit-outs by that many, 43-27, well, you think you at least win clearance. But not only did they not win, they got absolutely smashed and then outscored from stoppage. So I thought Petty had his real struggles early against Draper. It was a move of Van Rooyen into the ruck to provide a genuine contest. You've got to admire the way that young man goes about his footy.
What do you make of the Bombers though? Because they beat the Pies last week. Everyone says this is the win they need to have. This is the win that proves they're a real finals contender. They can do some damage in September. But then, as we've seen so often with Essendon in the past, they follow it with a really limp performance. They've only won 2 of their last 6 games now. Can they be a threat in September still?
I wouldn't have thought so. I'd never had them as a genuine premiership threat. I've always said, and you've asked me this a number of times, win a final and that's a pass mark from where they have been, and that's probably about where they sit. If you don't allow Merritt to do as he pleased, and Melbourne, great coaching with Neil Bullen, did the job on him. Now, Merritt still had enough of the footy, but wasn't as effective if you let him do what Collingwood did last week and set up with no one on him, 15 score involvement. So take him away. They're getting nothing from Peter Wright. They're getting nothing from Jake Stringer. Well, certainly they didn't tonight. Yes, it was tricky conditions, but probably the consistency of some of their players. You know, Ben Mackay had 7 intercept marks, but thought some of his efforts and intensity was really poor. Ridley was probably the same tonight. So they just didn't have enough winners, and Melbourne came with a determined mindset to win contests, to win clearance, and then they set the game up beautifully, and it was an emphatic performance.
It was a brave win from Melbourne. It was a brave win from the Western Bulldogs as well at Marvel Stadium. That's where we find our Saturday star. It was Jamari Ugle-Hagan. He had some heat on him this week with Aaron Norton going out of the team, but he was fantastic. 20 disposals, 4 goals, 13 score involvements. He was the difference for the Dogs.
And I love this for a number of reasons, because he had the Wiedering matchup, and about a quarter into this game, Wiedering was absolutely torching him. Wiedering had 6 intercept marks early in the second term, and Ugle-Hagan wanted to wrestle, and he was just getting out-bodied. You're not going to match Jacob Wiedering in a wrestle. So what he did to be able to learn and to adjust on the run in-game, get on the move, run through contest. He kicked a stoppage goal late. He took Jacob Wiedering there. That one there took him to stoppage. Wiedering doesn't want to be at stoppage. So I just thought his ability to adapt in-game was something I probably hadn't seen from him. His form had been so low. He was dropping chest marks. He was going one-handed. So to see him stand up, and a lot of those goals he kicked were when Carlton found some momentum. They were clutch goals, and it was a super performance from him tonight.
14-point win for the Dogs. They were fantastic. It was in the midfield where they got the better of the Blues. I want to show you this, Kane, because this is Carlton's midfield group throughout the season. So Patrick Cripps and Sam Walsh are fantastic, but when they don't get a tune out of them, where's it coming from? Because this is their next best midfielders in terms of their champion data playing ratings. George Hewitt's missed the last 3 games. He's been dropped from the side. He's not anymore. Matt Kennedy was the sub today, so dropped from the 22 as well. It was exposed today when Sam Walsh was a little bit down in Cripper's 200 that they just didn't have anyone else that could win the ball from the midfield.
Well, that's what I walked away from the game as well. I thought Cripps was just enormous. He had 10 in the last quarter, and you thought, is he going to do what he did against Port Adelaide and win this game off his own back in game 200? But he couldn't because he didn't have enough help. So I don't know why Hewitt's not in the side, and you've got to question his form and whether they're just one pace through the midfield. Now, Elijah Hollands is going to be a good player, but hasn't played a lot of footy. Ollie Hollands was poor, but Chera's the one. So Chera's rating looks okay, but I reckon he fumbled 8 crucial balls today. So Carlton win first possession by 15. So off the ruckman, first possession, you win it. The amount of times Richards and Libba stripped them, and I thought Chera's performance was highlighted by the amount of fumbles, and they let Cripps and Walsh down because they just don't have enough depth at the moment through the midfield.
The Western Bulldogs, as we mentioned, fantastic today. They momentarily went into the top 8 before Melbourne beat Essendon on Saturday evening, so they drop out again. But they're 9-8 in the season. Their next fortnight will define their finals chances because they play Geelong at GMHBA Stadium next week and then Sydney at the SCG. Do they need to pinch one of them, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely they do. They're starting from so far back, but I just think the talent that is in their side, even without Jones and players that they were missing today, Norton. So, I mean, they came with a defensive mindset. That's all the Western Bulldogs should judge themselves on. The previous week against Port Adelaide, opened up from the back half, didn't defend. I was there live, as you were today, and you can see guarding space, not allowing the Blues to get their ball movement going, guarding the corridor, instructing each other, and then their contest work to match Carlton through the midfield, and the 3 centre bounce goals they kicked in the third term broke the game open, and essentially that's the difference in the game. Now, you could say if Charlie Curnow doesn't kick 3-7 and kicks accurately, then it's a different story, but it was the intensity, the contest, the stoppage stuff from the Western Bulldogs, and to get 9 intercept marks from Buku Karmas and Rory Lobb as makeshift defenders was pretty important today. So it was a really impressive performance from the Western Bulldogs. They should be thrilled with it. They should enjoy it and then move on to a really good test against the Cats in Geelong next week.
Got so much talent. When they are on, they're going to be difficult to beat. And if they slip into September, they could beat anyone on their day. Let's get to Tassie now. That's where we find our moment of the weekend. It came from the Wizard, Nick Watson. He's had his troubles in front of goal. Firstly, it's a fantastic mark. Then when he needs to go back, you can see it's an 8-point game there and put the icing on the cake for the Hawks. Look what he does.
Don't worry about the Wizard. Don't worry about the inaccuracy. This is going to turn in a big way, and he loves the moment. He actually kicked a bomb from 50, and Kaushiji had just touched it on the goal line earlier on in the game, but he keeps fronting up and he keeps having a crack. He's involved in critical contests. He's an excellent tackler. He's courageous, and then the finishing is going to come. You can see it. His field kicking is absolutely magnificent, and to finish there was a great moment for this young Hawthorn group, who I reckon they're the most watchable team with Sydney in the comp right now.
They certainly are. What about James Sicily, the captain? He came back from the shoulder injury. He played in the back line. He was a bit tentative. I reckon you sent me a text saying
it was a liability. James Sicily, I was saying you should not have put your hand up to play. He looked like a liability in these contests with that shoulder, just no confidence whatsoever. So Sam Mitchell has said, look at this, he just can't tackle. You can see him grimace on his face with pain. So Sam Mitchell says, all right, I'm going to send you forward. And I love that about Sam Mitchell's coaching. He's not afraid to make in-game moves. And we saw it today with Weddle. Weddle started back and then he went forward, kicked a goal, and he does the same with Hardwick. He's back and he's forward. And in the end, this was the match-winning move. And then Sicily got his confidence up. He had a bit more strength in the shoulder to take that contested mark, and he kicks 3 goals, and it was the match-defining move from Sam Mitchell. So what a strong performance it was for Hawthorn, who were challenged early, and Fremantle are a good side. That game, there wasn't many highlights, but I thought the tackling and defensive performance from both teams, that was a tough game of footy, and in the end, the young Hawks were too tough and too good.
3 goals in the second half for James Sicily. He was the match winner. What about Hawthorn's record in Tassie? They're starting to make a bit of a fortress down there. We mentioned earlier in the year Gold Coast and what they were able to do in Darwin, a little home away from home. They've won 8 of their last 10 and 6 of their last 7 in Tassie at the Hawks.
Yeah, it's a great ground, and often you get fine conditions like they did today. Yeah, it's cold, but big, wide open spaces suits their run and gun off half back. So they really took it to Fremantle, which is what I was impressed with through the midfield. So Fremantle's numbers in the midfield absolutely off the charts, and Luke Jackson is a good ruckman, but Meat was enormous.
Yep.
And they outscored them from stoppage. In the end, I think it was a 13-point margin of victory. It was about 13 points from stoppage, which was the difference in the game. So that midfield group would be thrilled.
Let's get to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does. We'll start at the MCG where you can hear the whistle being blown. The umpire then pays advantage. Mark puts up. I don't know if he doesn't hear it or if he just ignores it, but you won't see more of a blatant throw than that.
Yeah, don't see it very often. Usually the umpire would call it back. Ross wasn't happy. His Saints, we'll get to them in a second. They kicked 5 goals, disaster. And he smashed the phone twice. And broke, come on, Ross.
And what about this? A little quarter time sponsor event at the MCG tonight, and the bloke just gets absolutely cleaned up by the inflatable footy coming off the post. That is an Amy
lucky to survive that.
Indeed, it certainly is. All right, let's get to Adelaide Oval now. As you mentioned, the Crows getting over the line against the Saints. It all came about in the last quarter. They're only 8 points up at three-quarter time. They kicked 4 goals to nothing in the final term.
Yep.
Rolly Philthorpe comes back. His first game of the year following that long-term knee injury. Comes out from a substitute appearance, kicks 2 goals in the final term.
Saw him at the gym the other day. I reckon he's put on 8 kilos. Look at the size of him. He's got the build, the thrill seeker. He just looks a different person from that injury layoff. It was about 14, 15 weeks he just must have spent in the gym. He's eating the weights. Look at this stuff, like just one-on-one, winning one-on-ones at the top of the goal square. So it's frightening what this guy can become, provided the body stays sound. So I think Walker should retire at season's end. Then it's Fogarty and Thilthorpe with Rochelle there.
Do you just play him solely as a key forward,
yeah,
do you reckon?
Play him solely as a key forward until you're comfortable with his ability to go into the ruck. But Adelaide need a replacement ruckman. They're clearly wanting to move on from Riley O'Brien, but the thrill seeker, they should be pretty excited about what he can deliver in the next 10 years. He's got to be the future of that forward line. It's time for Walker to retire. Him and Fogarty, perfect. But Adelaide, it was a really good performance, and you said the last quarter, stormed home kicking 4 goals, and poor old Saints, once again, there's nothing to cheer about. They're in the bottom 4 of the ladder. They're young players, probably apart from Filippo, who was okay today, are down on form, and there's not that much to be excited about.
No, there certainly isn't. Firmly entrenched in the bottom 4 now are the Saints. Let's get to the SCG, where Sydney easily accounted for North Melbourne. And it was Logan McDonald's day, because the last couple of weeks he's had some late opportunities. This one after the siren against Fremantle, he missed that. Another one late against the Saints where he missed it from similar distance, similar spot on the field, 50 metres out directly in front of faded late. But he comes out today, puts it all behind him, kicks 4 goals from 7 marks and 16 disposals. So it was good for him just to show, get a bit of confidence back and show that he can be the man in the forward line.
It takes good character, doesn't it, to keep fronting up. Even that one against the Saints, he wanted that moment and he wanted to take the shot and he nearly scored. Now, it does help when you kick 20 goals and you're the key forward, but he started the game really strongly. It was 8 or 9 possessions in the first quarter. So to have, a field day, really. He's had a lot of games where he's kicked his 1s and 2s and played his role, but against North Melbourne, who should have drafted this guy, North Melbourne's side looks a lot different if they drafted Logan McDonald over Will Phillips. It'd be perfect to team up with Larkey. They're desperate for another key defender and another key forward. He could have been that guy, but a really good game for Sydney and for Logan McDonald to feel good about themselves after a couple of down weeks.
What about the Swans? So Isaac Heaney goes out of the side through that 1-game suspension. In comes Luke Parker. He's the substitute today. His first appearance of the year, having missed the start of the campaign with a broken forearm. Then he spent some time in the VFL.
He's hungry.
Cal Mills, their skipper. Shoulder and a calf injury, but what a difference these two players
can make.
Look at
this guy. I love him. He's one of my favourite players, but comes on as a sub and ends up having 13 disposals, 6 tackles, 4 clearances, 2 goals, and he came on in the third quarter. So you can see what it means to him. And I just reckon Sydney just needed a change of personnel a little bit, add some energy. You can see what happened after he kicked that goal. They came from everywhere. And then this, so provided his body holds, he's in their best 8. He's in their best 15, Luke Parker. Like he will be playing in September. He'll force an Adams out or a Braden Campbell or someone like that. He will just be playing. He's too good not to have him.
What's their best midfield when Heaney gets back?
Now, you have to look at it, but they just rotate through. They're all in there, like all of them. Yeah, they've got so many options. Rowbottom's in there and Heaney comes back and Gordon wing on ball. Parker can play forward. So I think the thing about their midfield is they're all versatile enough. Mills can go to half back, Parker can go forward, Papley can come and have a run on ball, Gordon can go to the wing, Heaney can go forward. So there's so many options that they've got. That's why they're the best team in it, and that's why they'll be there on grand final day.
It's not a bad problem to have, is it? All right, let's get to the MCG now. Friday night footy, where Geelong beat Collingwood. And you might have been surprised to see Isaac Quainer line up on Jeremy Cameron. Jeremy Cameron certainly was. This was him talking to 3AW after the game.
Did you expect the Quaynor matchup, or did that surprise you at the start?
No, it did surprise me for sure. I didn't really pick that at all. But I'm happy to take whoever you know, they put on me. They obviously put Quaynor on me to just body me and check me, you know, all night long, basically, and not really leave my side in a lot of ways. I was pretty excited to see that matchup. So, and no disrespect to him, he's just a half-backer that had a massive role tonight, and he actually played really well, I thought. So, you know, it was an interesting one from the start of the game, but yeah, it was sort of, he won some contests and so did I.
Pretty excited to see that matchup. I would have been too if I was Jeremy Cameron, and his record's been well documented against Collingwood. That's the reason why. Why doesn't Darcy Moore, the captain of Collingwood, put his hand up to play on the best opposition forwards? I just don't understand it. So clearly here's some vision of Moore. His timing is completely off. Leaves Neil there and he gets himself in no man's land. So this is the behind the goals vision. We are showing how many times Darcy Moore makes the incorrect decision, or when he goes, he doesn't impact. And the flow-on effect from that you can only see from behind the goals. And then they end up with a free inside forward 50. And if you're watching from the broadcast at home on TV, you're going, how did that Geelong player end up inside 50 all alone? Well, that's because Darcy Moore, the captain of Collingwood, wants to be free and doesn't want to play on anyone. And when he is free, his timing is all off. So he's had a really poor year. I've been strong on that. They need more from him. And if he can't put his hand up to play on the best opposition forward, and you're forcing poor old Isaac Quaynor to give away 15 centimetres doing it, then what are you there for? He may as well go forward. They've got forward line struggles everywhere. He's gone forward before. If he doesn't want to defend, if he wants to do that, if he keeps getting lost and becomes a liability for his side and makes them far too easy to score against, then go forward, or you might have to get out of the side. That's how bad his form has been, and that vision which we've poured through today just highlights that.
Well, that's exactly right, I think. If you're the third or fourth, if you're playing the third or fourth tall, you might as well go for it. They had no key forwards last night.
And the other thing is, or if you're a loose, impact. So he wants to be loose, but he ends up with 8 touches and 4 kicks.
He has to be getting 20, doesn't
and 1 intercept mark. Now, if Tom Stewart's loose behind the ball, he ends up with 27 and 6 intercept marks. Or if Jacob Wiedering does it, or if Sicily does it, or the best do it, that's what they do. Ridley's another one. Whereas Darcy Moore gets 4 kicks because he wants to play loose and he's not playing anyone. So send him forward, or get him out of the side and get him back into some form.
What about Geelong? Did they learn a few lessons from the Bombers? Because last week the Bombers were plus 44 in terms of uncontested marks against the Pies. They were plus 70 odd last night, Geelong, in terms of uncontested marks. They just controlled the game, didn't let Collingwood possess it. We're about to see an example here where we've had to speed it up because they just keep kicking and kicking and kicking, and they control the footy for so long and they get out the back in the end.
Yeah, I think it's a good method, and it's a good method against Sydney. So when they've been beaten this year, this similar method happens, because what it does do, it takes you a lot of energy to defend the ground like this, and it denies you the football, and it's frustrating. So you've got to be a pretty skillful team to do it. It is high risk, because if you turn it over, then you're easy to score against. But you go to contest and then look at Geelong's ability to win the contest and then get out. So controlled, safe, smart. When you need to go down the line, you go down the line, and then you win contest and then you burst out. So it's good coaching. It's why he's the best coach in it.
What about Collingwood, though? Because last week you mentioned how they might have lost their aura. I wonder if they're starting to lose their fear factor as well. So what we knew of Craig McRae when he first came on was that they were so good at clawing teams back from three-quarter time. So when they were behind at three-quarter time, Craig McRae's first 16 games behind at three-quarter time, they're 12-4. They've only won 2 of their last 11 in similar positions. Sides are putting the foot down against them now, whereas in the past they might have been looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, I think we probably need to stop talking about this. Like this is gone now. This is a long time ago. This is the reality for Collingwood. So anytime we're watching the footy and they're behind, Collingwood the comeback kings. They're not the comeback kings. They're 2-9 in their past 11 when they've been down at three-quarter time. So that aura is gone. They're really challenged. Clearly they've had their issues. We understand all of that, but it's just not the same outfit, and they're scratching and clawing to try and make the 8, and even Craig McRae knows time's running out.
Well, speaking of trying to make the 8, let's have a look at the ladder for the first time this year. Only a few games remaining in the season. You can see Sydney, they're clearly on top. They go 12 points clear of the Blues in second place. But then you can throw a blanket from second till about where Kane, 13th or 14th on the ladder.
Who's out of the 8 as we go over to the next slide? Who out of the 8 do you think is going to force their way in, if any?
I just still have the belief in Collingwood. I know what we've just said, but if they can get some troops back, and Dan McStay played VFL today, if he can provide something for them back half of the season, I still think they've got the most talent on their
The
list.
Giants for me. I think the Giants forced their way into the 8.
This is the rest of the round. So Gold Coast take on Port Adelaide. That's going to be a really interesting game. Can the Power knock over the Suns at their home deck? No one else has been able to do that this year. Richmond takes on the Giants at the MCG, and then West Coast against Brisbane. Who wins Gold Coast, Port Adelaide?
Gold Coast at home.
At home. I think they have to win at home. Thank you for joining us on the round so far. We'll see you next week.
For the best and most comprehensive wrap of each round, Access All Areas is the show for you, unpacking all the action and dissecting the big news from each round. Access All Areas, thanks to Crypto.com, Mondays on AFL.com.au and the AFL Live app.